Epic children's fantasy, epic tale of the living dead, kids' adventure stories. Written by Jeff Child, narrated by John H. Feskins. Introduction. Gary is an ordinary guy, a young guy who is still looking for his identity. He lives in a small village, but he has an innate desire to explore the world around him. That desire only increases when he finds out about the prophecy, a prophecy predicting that a young hero will rise to save the entire nation, signed by someone with the same last name. It sparks his curiosity, and he embarks on a journey to find some answers. On his quest, he comes across magical items and dangerous enemies. Is the prophecy true, and will he ever find out what's behind it? Chapter 1. Foretold. The first time he saw it, he brushed it off like it was nothing. He thought it was a joke, a trivial piece of paper with no meaning to it. But when he looked at it again, after giving it much thought, he realized the significance of the words on that scroll. Unbelievable, Gary thought. It can't be. But it was true, no matter how strange it seemed. Gary was the son of a poor mother in the village, but he was smart. He learned how to read and write, and how to analyze things in detail. His father had left about a year ago. He didn't know where he had gone. But his mother didn't want to talk about it much. She always got upset whenever he brought it up, so he usually didn't mention it. But now he got curious. In his hands there was a small scroll, a piece of paper, as it were, with letters written in ink. He read it over and over again. Incredible! Where did this come from? He had to show his mother. There was no doubt in his mind that this had something to do with his father's disappearance. The library he worked for was small, but this scroll wasn't part of it. Somebody had put it there to be found, and now he found it. Was it destiny, or was it just a coincidence? When he got off work, he went home as usual, but this time he hurried. He couldn't wait to tell his mother, who was waiting for him with the dinner she had prepared. "Mother," he said when he rushed in. "What is it, Gary? Was work okay?" "It was fine, but I have to tell you something." "What is it?" she asked, surprised. "Here, read this," Gary said. She took the scroll from him and started reading. This is what it said. "A brave hero shall rise from the depths of civilization, preventing calamity and exterminating evil. By the hand of his sword all nations shall be freed. Mine Valley, thy name be praised, thy legend be told. Do not deny us the scar of thy eye. Come out and defeat the destructive ones. D. Prestigon." "This is impossible," Gary's mother said. "Where did you get this?" "I found it at the library," Gary said. "It was hidden between some of the books I was organizing. It looked as if someone had just put it there." His mother looked worried. She didn't know what to think of it. She kept shaking her head and started eating nervously. She was silent until Gary said something. "Mom, I want to know what this means. Can you help me?" His mother was still silent. "Why is my dad's name on this scroll? Did he write it? Do you know anything about this? Or does the letter D stand for something else? Please, I need to know." "Okay," his mother finally said. "I will explain to you whatever I know, even though I would rather not talk about it. I'm listening. Whatever it is, you can tell me." "Well, your father always was a little bit in his own world. I didn't mind that. I married him because I loved him, and I still do. But sometimes I just didn't understand him. He would babble about all kinds of nonsense, and he would dig into books all day. At one point, it even cost him his job because he didn't show up for work. Whenever I would ask him, he would talk about visions, dangers, and the end of times. It never made any sense to me, so I would just calm him down and change the topic." "Yes, I know he was a little strange that way. What do you think he saw?" Gary asked. "I don't know. I just don't. But at a certain point, he talked about you. He said you didn't know your own potential and that it would become apparent someday. When I wanted to know what that meant, he just told me not to worry and kept it at that. That is the whole truth." "What happened to him? You never talk about it." True. I am just sad about what happened, and I can't explain it. So that's why I just kept my mouth shut. I was hoping to be able to clarify things later, but I didn't find the answers in all that time. So how did he disappear? He was kidnapped, Gary's mother said. Kidnapped? By whom? That's just it. I really don't know. They just came in here and grabbed him. He yelled and struggled, and I did too, but there was nothing we could do. They were armed to the teeth. They weren't from around here. I knew that. Their clothes were dark, and their shields had a skull on it. It was creepy. I had never seen something like that before. And they just came in and captured Dad? Yes. That's terrible. I have to find him. I want him back, and I want to know why he wrote this. I understand, his mother said, and I want him back as much as you do. But don't you think that would be dangerous? Who knows what those men might do to you? We don't even know if he is alive. And where would you start looking? The prophecy mentions Mine Valley, so that is where I will begin looking, Gary said. I made up my mind, Mom. I cannot let this go unsolved. I need answers, and I want my father back. With those words, they ended their conversation and finished their meal. It became a restless night for Gary, full of questions and lying awake. Chapter 2. Unclear Answers. Gary had no idea where Mine Valley was, so the next day he went back to the library. He had to work there anyway, so he figured that he might as well make use of his job to find answers. When he had some time off, he dug deep into the books about Mine Valley. He found a lot about its history, the two groups of people divided there, and some cultural background. Some of the shields stood out particularly. That's the one with the skull on it, he said, thinking out loud. Hey, what's that other one? He observed two coats of arms on shields, one with a white skull on a black background. Green flames were coming from its eyes, and an evil smirk was on its face. Complicated patterns were found around it as decorations, making it a sophisticated piece of work. The other was a zombie head, an ugly face with empty, hollow eyes, big black bags underneath its eyes, and a drooling mouth. Streams of blood were covering random pieces of skin on its face, and the background looked green with less difficult but equally impressive patterns. Interesting, Gary said. But he couldn't find anything about the symbol's significance. It just didn't make any sense. Were those just to divide the people from each other in the valley? Or was there some darker, supernatural side to it? The books didn't explain it. He had to figure it out when he would get there. He looked for maps in the topographical section of the library. Whoa, 3 days walking, he said, when he calculated the distance between his village and Mine Valley. That was discouraging. But it wasn't the first time he had gone on a big hike, so he decided right there and then that he would make the trip. It was too important. When he found everything he needed, he went to his boss to ask for permission to leave. It was an old woman who was fairly flexible and took it easy every day. She was an avid reader, and she was often polite. Yes, she asked. I would like to resign for a temporary, limited amount of time, Gary said. Okay, I am open to that. Would you please explain why? My father has been kidnapped. I'm going to get him in Mine Valley. Oh my, she said. That is definitely an important reason. Well, I wish you all the luck. Let me know when you get back. And be careful. I've heard bad things about the people in Mine Valley. I will. Thank you, Gary said. He left the library and went home. Then he gathered some food, a sleeping bag, a knife, a few bottles of water, matches, and some other survival items, and put them in his backpack. He said goodbye to his mother and left. Chapter 3. The Quest for Truth. Gary had been walking for a few hours. The sun was shining, the grass was green, and everything looked safe and secure. But some things were still bothering him. What was meant by the hero who would save all nations? And what was up with the scarred eye? Why did his father write this, and how did he know about it? It just still didn't make sense. He walked up the mountain in front of him. The path was easy to tread. It was clear and simple. At least many had gone before him, so it shouldn't be a problem for him. At least that's what he thought. When it was evening and the sun went down, he became a little afraid. He was on his own, and that made him an easy target for robbers, muggers, and animal predators. He grabbed his knife from his backpack, just to make sure. With that, he continued for another hour until he heard some loud noises. "Let's get him," a voice said. Just like he predicted, they must be robbers. Gary dropped his backpack and stood firm, ready to counter the attacks by these assailants. 3 robbers jumped out of the bushes and came at him with much aggression. "Rah!" they yelled. Gary took courage and withstood their blows. The rough, barbarian attackers had clubs with which they tried to hit the young fellow. They missed. Gary stabbed one of them. It was his first kill. At first it terrified him. He was shaking. He looked into the robber's eyes and felt horribly guilty. But it was self-defense. He knew that if he wouldn't kill them, they would take his life instead. So he chose to forget the sudden change of events and draw from his adrenaline, fighting back like a beast. Another robber came at him. Gary ducked and stabbed this one too. However, his knife got stuck. The robber fell on the ground, screaming in agony but taking the knife with him. "Ha ha 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 ha," the third robber said. "Lost your weapon, huh? Well, that's too bad. Looks like you're going to die here, buddy." He pulled the knife out of his dead friend and sliced Gary's skin. "Ah!" I cried. It was right by my face. Gary felt lucky that he hadn't died yet. The knife had just barely scratched the surface of his skin. He was bleeding, but he wasn't done with this guy yet. He reached over and picked up one of the clubs. "Come and get me," he said courageously. The robber yelled and made a few stabbing motions in Gary's direction, but Gary was quick and agile. He evaded his attacks and banged him on the head with the club he had just acquired. Thud! Whether the robber was unconscious or dead, he did not know, but the threat was eliminated, and that was enough. His heart was pounding like a drum, his hands were shaking, and he almost shed a few tears. He just killed some people. He knew it was the right thing to do, but he still felt a little empty inside. Hopefully he would get used to it soon. Chapter 4. Found. He wanted to find a place to hide, a safe place he could spend the night. After the traumatic event that had just occurred, he needed to make sure he got away from the path that had so deceptively appeared secure in the first place. After a while, he found a small cave. "Perfect," he thought. "I can spend the night there." He walked up and checked the area. Everything seemed safe. Then he sat down on a rock and touched his face. It wasn't bleeding much, but the cut could turn into a scar. It was painful, and he didn't have anything to take care of it except for some water. He cleaned the wound, which was right underneath and above his left eye. Strange. Was this part of the prophecy? How did his dad know this would happen? It was mind-boggling. Then he saw something else. The cave wasn't completely empty. A shiny object was reflecting the vague moonlight from outside the cave. "What is that?" Gary asked himself. He got up and walked toward the glimmering item. It was a sword. "Wow," Gary said. "A sword! This way I can really defend myself." This was awesome. He looked at the blade. It was sharp and it had a fine handle, with decorative gems and beautiful patterns. When he was done looking at the blade and put it in its sheath that was next to it, he looked around him again. Hey, there was something else too. After putting the sword away, he walked towards the other wall of the cave. It was a TNT block. It probably got left behind by some of the miners in that area. Strange. Moreover, it had a hole in it that the sword would fit in perfectly. Gary didn't hesitate. He was too curious to see what would happen. He stepped back and grabbed the sword, pulled it out of its sheath, and stabbed it into the hole in the TNT block. What happened after that was something he would never forget. The sword attached to the TNT block and shocked him as he was holding it. He felt a vibrating power go through his body. It was sudden and startling. It was one of the strongest things he had ever felt. Did this sword just turn into some kind of explosive sword or something? time would tell. Chapter 5. Coats of Arms. It took 2 more days to get to Mine Valley. When he arrived, he noticed why people had been warning him against it. From the top of the mountain, he saw 2 towns, one on each side of the valley. They both had big walls around them, as if to protect themselves from the others. Gary could immediately tell which village he should go to first, since one of them primarily consisted of black and white houses, and the other of dark green ones. His mother had told him that his dad was captured by people with skull symbols. And because the coat of arms with the skull was mostly black and white, it made sense to go to the village with the same colors. He descended down the mountain and turned left, following the path to the town with the skull symbol. As he came closer, he got an even worse feeling about it. The front gate was covered with skulls, and a big flag with their coat of arms was hanging on top of the entrance. It was huge. Guards with skull helmets were standing there, holding weapons and shields to defend the village. "Hold it right there," one of them said. "Who are you? What do you want?" "I'm just visiting from the mountains. I live in a tiny village on the other side, 3 days away from here." "Show me what you have in that backpack." Gary pulled out all his stuff. After unpacking everything, the guard asked, "What are you going to do with that sword?" "Probably sell it," Gary lied. "I found it in a cave, so it may be worth something." The guard raised his eyebrows and then finally said, "Okay, you're good to go." Gary went inside and was amazed at the sight of the village. Most people looked pretty regular, but occasionally there was a person clothed in black or white entirely. It was like they were proud of wearing their colors. There were all kinds of trades and guilds in the village: blacksmiths, bakers, butchers, carpenters, and more. Men and women dressed up in casual clothes, but some of them looked really weird, with white and black checkered robes or hoodies, or a skirt and shirt that were completely white or black. Gary kind of liked seeing it, feeling like a tourist. Then someone in particular caught his eye. It was a guy with a beard, dressed in black, with skulls all over his mantle. He looked as if he was up to no good. If the skulls weren't creepy enough, then the look on his face topped it all. He slightly tilted his head all the time when someone talked to him, never looking straight at someone, and the smirk on the right side of his face made him appear as some confident evil villain, plotting to do something terrible. He left, and Gary was determined to follow him wherever he went. Gary just had this gut feeling that he was going to take him to his dad, somehow. He kept his distance and saw him enter a basement underneath some old building. Gary walked over there and slowly opened the door. It was a large, spacious, dark room he entered, and he hid in the corner immediately. "So what is our next step?" the guy with the hood asked. "We will release the army against the Green Village and exterminate them." "Won't they do the same?" "Maybe, but if we act quickly, we'll be ahead of them." "Let's do it then." This was awful. Gary almost bonked his head when he heard it. Were they really going to exterminate the entire village? He knew he had to look for his father sometime, but this seemed to have become a priority. He had to warn the other village. As fast as he could, he disappeared, going back the way he came and walking through the village to the entrance. He tried to act as if there was nothing going on, but he knew something terrible was going to occur. The guards let him out, and he started running towards the other village, the one with all the green houses. The same scenario took place. A big guard asked him why he was there, as he was standing in front of the village gates, decorated with the huge flag that had the zombie coat of arms on it. "I want to speak to the village leader," Gary said. "Well, you'll have to explain yourself first," the guard said. "Not everyone is supposed to see the leader. Why do you want to see him?" "Something big is going to happen, something horrible. The other village, they are talking about destroying this village. I have to let your leader know about that so he can prepare for it." "Fine. I will guide you to the government building. Willis, take over, please." "Aye, aye, sir." The guard showed Gary the way. They walked through the streets of the green town, which had as many people in green clothes as the black and white town had people in black and white clothes. Apparently, they were pretty proud of their color, too. "Wait here," the guard said after a while. "I will go and ask if he will see you." "Sure," Gary said. Chapter 6. Terrorizing Towns. Gary waited outside. He wasn't allowed in the building yet. He waited and waited. Finally, there he was. "You may enter," the guard said. Gary went inside. The guard stayed outside. The building was highly decorated, but it gave him the shivers. There were paintings with zombies in it, dark arches and shapes that looked like claws, and a weird mirror with leaded glass on the top. Gary was almost wondering if it would be such a bad thing to have the village be destroyed with all that ugly art and architecture. But he cared about human life. He cared about the innocent being protected, and so he wanted to give these people a chance. When he came into the main room where the ruler was, the door behind him shut automatically. Come in," the ruler said. "Put your sword on the floor, please. I would hate to have you arrested for threatening me." Gary put his backpack and his weapon down and walked forward. "The guard told me you wanted to tell me something urgent. Speak up, I am listening." "Well, I was at the other village, the black and white one, and people there were talking about raising an army to attack this town. They were saying that they wanted to destroy this place." "That must be an army of skeletons they were talking about," the ruler said. "An army of what? Skeletons?" "Yes, of course." "Is that why they have skeletons on their flags and shields?" "You're a pretty smart cookie, aren't you?" "I'm sorry, sir. I am new to all of this. If they are raising an army of skeletons, then what are you going to do about it?" "Oh, it's very simple. We will raise our own army. We have our own wizards and necromancers. But our army will consist of zombies. Zombies are a lot stronger, at least that is my opinion. So we just have to be ahead of them or strike back when they come at us." You have wizards that can, raise the dead?" Gary stammered. "Yes. What's it to you?" "Oh, nothing. I guess that you have it all covered then, don't you?" "Of course. We will push them back and do the exact thing they were planning to do with us." The ruler became a little angrier and clenched his fist. "We will let them know not to mess with us any longer. We will unleash the zombie army and take over every town in the country. Then it will be us, the most powerful people in these lands, that will rule. Everyone will submit to us or die. And this will be the beginning of a new era." "Really? That sounds great. Yes, go Zombie Village," Gary said a little sheepishly. He was already seeing the craziness of both towns, and he figured that it would be unwise to question this lunatic's plans. "Thank you for notifying me," the ruler said. "I will take it from here." "You're very welcome," Gary said as he slowly left the room. When he came outside, he scratched his head. All kinds of things went through his head. Somehow he had to stop this thing from happening, but what was he going to do? He walked outside the village walls in the direction of the black and white town. When he came to the middle, right in between the two towns, he found himself on a large, empty field. There were a few random bushes, but for the most part there was only sand and rocks and some patches of grass. Seriously? Was this going to be the battlefield? Gary wondered what would happen if this clash of these two clans, these people, was going to be real, if it would just affect them or if it would spread across the world. The ruler of the Green Village said they would take over every country with their zombie army. If that would be the case, then this disaster had to be prevented, somehow. As he kept thinking about it, he almost didn't realize that there were two armies coming at him, both from a different direction. They were still far away, appearing only as little dots in the distance, but they were increasing in speed. When Gary turned both ways to take a look, it sunk in what was happening. It just became real. The two armies had been summoned. At the head of each army stood a necromancer, a dark figure with a cape or mantle and a rod in their hands. They were holding up their rods and shouting at their armies, encouraging them to press forward and attack. Hundreds of zombies were coming from the right side, and an equal number of skeletons were approaching him from the left. He turned left, he turned right. He was stuck in the middle. These two armies of the undead would soon engage in battle and crash at him. It was going to be a slaughter. Gary became extremely nervous. He was clueless and terrified. But then he remembered that he had a sword to defend himself. He pulled the weapon out of its sheath and held it up. A powerful force with an intrinsic feeling went through his spine. There was something strange about this sword that he had injected into the TNT block earlier. He sensed it. It became stronger and stronger. It was as if it was loading up explosive energy. "Wah!" he yelled, feeling the power and intensity of the sword. The armies were close now. They were clearly visible and immensely creepy to look upon. It would only be seconds until the necromancers and their rotting, decaying armies and undead corpses would plant their weapons in the innocent hero as well as in each other. But then Gary felt a compelling force that made him crush the sword down and stab it into the ground. Kaboom! After thrusting it into the soil, an explosion emanated from the center of the sword, spreading in circles like a rapid wave to all the combatants and destroying every form of life around it. The perimeter expanded quickly and powerfully, causing the whole area between the two towns to explode. It was the most impressive, intense moment in their history. Smoke evaporated from the scene for a while, making it impossible to see what had just occurred. When the smoke was gone, Gary was still sitting on one knee, tightly holding on to the sword that he had stuck into the soil. He looked down as if he had just experienced a severe shock. It was lifeless around him. There was no movement. When he finally came to his senses, he stood up, pulled out the sword, and looked at the fields. All skeletons and zombies were dead. They were heaped up on various small piles, and so were the two necromancers. Some of their bodies were still burning, while others were completely incinerated and left to ashes. "Wow," Gary said softly. He didn't expect this to happen. What a powerful sword. But then it all started to make sense. A feeling of pride and relief came over him when he realized that he had just saved all the nations from these undead armies, just like it said in the prophecy. He touched his face and felt the scar that was left from the fight with the robbers. It was amazing how all these events had come together. And now there was only one thing left to do: rescue his father, if he was still alive. Chapter 7. My Dad. Gary stepped over all the corpses and went to the skeleton town. The guards were gone. Odd. He noticed as he was walking through the streets that everybody else was gone too. Where did they all go? The big crowd of villagers that he had seen earlier had completely disappeared. Gary kept walking and saw a bunch of eyes staring at him through the windows of the houses. So that's where they all went. They were all hiding. They must have known about the upcoming fight and decided to stay in their homes. Such corrupted villagers. If they knew about it and didn't do anything, then they probably approved. Ugh. What was he going to do with these incorrigible people? He was sick of it. He wanted answers. And since he was the only one who had the guts to be outside, he assumed the villagers were scared of him. At that point, it would be good to use that to his advantage. So he looked around and then tried to go inside one of the houses. When he noticed it was locked, Gary kicked in the door and stormed in, holding his sword in front of him. A shaking little family was hiding in the corner of the room. "Where do they keep the prisoners in this town?" Gary yelled. "Tell me, now!" They are underneath the town building in the center," the father said. "Please don't hurt us. We didn't summon the skeletons. The wizard did." "I don't care," Gary said. "They are all dead. You can come out now. Your pathetic little army exploded in one move. Get a life and stop bothering the people in the other village." With those words, he walked out and headed towards the town center. A similar scenario took place in that building, having the new warriors storm in, threaten a few guards, and acquiring the keys to the cells in the basement. He left the terrified guards where they were and went down the stairs. It was a dark, humid place, a damp prison for those who opposed the views of this town. "Dad?" Gary shouted. At first he heard nothing, but then a small voice from a shady corner answered, "Is that you, son?" "Dad," Gary said as he approached his cell. His father was in tears. "I knew you would come," he said. "It was destiny." "Dad, let me get you out of here. We're going home." When he opened the cell door, his dad embraced him and held him for a little while. Then he followed him up the stairs and out of the building. Together, they watched several citizens carefully come out of their homes while leaving the village. On the way out, Gary gave his father something to eat before heading up towards the mountains. Chapter 8. Clarity. "Why were you captured?" Gary asked his father. "I was on to them," his father answered. "I knew what they were planning to do. I saw it in a vision, and I told people about it in town, but nobody believed me. They even started gossiping about me. I thought it would be important to know, but all they were saying was that I was falsely making up doomsday ideas. But really, this is what I saw. At first, though, I didn't realize it would be you who would save the day. But now that I see the scar on your face, it makes a lot of sense. Where did you get that scar?" "Oh, I got robbed, but I defended myself and survived. No big deal, you know?" His father laughed. "You talk about it as if it was nothing." "Yeah, I was just kidding. It was intense, and I hope it will never happen again because I almost lost my life. But Dad, you still haven't answered my question. How come they kidnapped you?" "Someone in town was related to one of those barbaric people in the skeleton town and told them about it. When they became aware of my visions, they simply barged in and took me away from your mother and you. It was one of the worst days of my life." "I can imagine. It was the same for me. I just suddenly lost my dad and my mom didn't want to talk about it." "That will be one person who will be glad to see me," his father said, while staring in front of him. "I am sure she will," Gary said. "What do you think will happen to those two towns in Mine Valley now?" "I don't care," his father said. "Let them fight over it. At least they won't be a threat to us since their wizards are gone. They are gone, aren't they? And oh, that reminds me. Could you explain what happened there? I still don't understand. You mentioned something earlier about an explosion. How did you do that? I heard it from my cell. The whole ground was shaking." "It was the sword," Gary said. "The sword?" "Yes, I thrust it into a TNT block, and only moments later, it was filled with power. When the two armies were about to dash and slash into each other, I stabbed the sword into the ground, and it caused a giant explosion." "Wow, that's impressive. I didn't know you could do that." "I didn't know about it either, but apparently it works." "Well, son, I am proud of you. And now that I think of it, I guess my prophecy wouldn't have come true if I hadn't written it down." "You're right. It only happened because I read it and decided to come to this valley. Your prophecy didn't just predict it, it made sure it would happen." "Strange." They both laughed. "A self-fulfilling prophecy. Pretty strange indeed," Gary said. The end.